This week's box is headlined by Scyther and Zigzagoon. We also have special guests of Piplup Nosepass as our remaining steel types for a potential scissor box. We have Shinx for Intim Volt Switch, Phantump for the old Brandon, and for the most important typing in the game, obviously, in Grass, and a little bit of Stall and Living Forever with Squivette and Slowpoke. I think this should be, just on paper, one of the best boxes so far on week 21. I think that all of these Pokemon are good, if not fantastic, so I'm very interested in using all of them a few times this week. So we open with Winona 1, where I want to lead Nosepass because Winona 1 has Swablu, Wingull, and Tropius, and I know that my Nosepass probably isn't doing anything into the Grass type or the Water type. So we get out Tropius on 2, which is expected. We're able to get a couple attack drops off on this Tropius with our Luxio, and then we'll just be able to will it down a bit with Spark. I'm gonna Leer as well, just do a bit more damage. I'm playing it is somewhat risky, I think, in retrospect, to keep the Luxio in here, because this is kind of my primary answer to Wingull, and things can get a little bit risky if I get to the Wingull and I have nothing to kill it, but especially with the Tropius setting up Sun again, I'm really not concerned about the Wingull at all. And fortunately we don't get crit by anything this gym, so we're able to breeze through Winona 1. That takes us to Juan and Wallace 2, where I have Frisk on Phantump, so we're able to steal the Dondozo's Oran Berry, which makes this a much easier fight. I'm clicking Pounce with Scyther, not for Scyther itself, but to reduce the Dondozo's speed a little bit. And I'm so focused on the Frisk that I forget my whole line is to switch Luxio in. We're able to get Luxio in. Later, though, Scyther's going to have to deal with Dondozo, but because Dondozo has so many speed drops, I know that we're going to be able to outspeed it, and now I can just put anything in for the Scyther, and we'll be able to take this Tatsugiri out. We Leer it because I know I'm going to hit it with a lot of moves to KO it, so reduce its defense a bit, and then we'll end up two-shotting it with Spark and Branch Poke. So two very easy early gyms. That pushes us off to Brawly 3, which would typically be a decently hard gym, but we have Technician Scyther, and you get Wing Attack for exactly this gym. We also have Aerial Ace, which I'm pretty sure Scyther can learn. So even if you get Winona 1 and then Brawly 2, I think you're still set, but Scyther's going to be able to make pretty quick work of this gym. We one-shot everything outside of the Hariyama, who we two-shot through Berry, so very quick opening gyms with this box. We are going to slow down a little bit. As you can see, 13-minute for the first 3 gyms is pretty good pace. We're going to be going a little bit slower for Tate and Liza 4, though. My line here is that I want to one-shot the Natu. I know that this Baltoy is going to be clicking Bulldoze because it sees super effective, or I think it's going to be clicking Bulldoze because it sees super effective on Luxio, and it will hit the Greedent. It goes Psybeam instead. The Baltoy is more likely to click Ground Move when it has a Levitate ally. I think when it has a Levitate ally, it gets plus 10 in scoring, so here it does end up clicking Bulldoze. I think turn 1 it might not have because it got minus attack from the Luxio. But my line here was I was intending for Greedent to get chunked a decent amount, and then I could thief 2 berries, one from the Lunatone, one from the Solrock. That doesn't end up happening, but I think it ends up being fine because the Lunatone gets healed. We nuclear bomb it with Shadow Claw, which I should have expected after the Leer, but I did not really think it would do that much. But now the Solrock comes in, it sees that we have berries, so it's always clicking Incinerate, and we're just going to be able to take it down with Shadow Claw Thief, perchance. No, we're going to need another turn, but I know that Greedent's going to be fine with this. Soul Rock at this HP, and we are through the first 4 gyms very easily. I think this box early game is pretty good. We get Electric, Ground, Flying, Fighting, and Steel. I end up only getting 1 TM, and then we jump straight into Viola 5. This can be a little bit difficult of a gym. The Intimidate Masquerain is a bit threatening, but fortunately it only has Bubble Beam at this gym. I think it gets Hydro Pump on Viola 6. So we're able to kind of just nuke a lot of this gym with Probopass. Probopass, I've always liked this Pokemon. I think that it's good. I think that bulky Pokemon, especially early, are very valuable, especially with my playstyle, which is very Intimidate and debuff reliant. You're also able to get Steel type later. It scales pretty well. Your moveset's good. And because you're Rock Steel, you're pretty much always going to dig out of Ninjask, and we're able to get Scyther in for free. And that is Viola 5 very easily. Now Scott offers us a few moves. We get Hyper Voice if we want it for our Sylveon, which we ended up taking as our Eevee, which is nice. We also get the Ice Beam TM. And now we get Flannery 6. So it is a bit unfortunate. Our Prinplup hasn't evolved yet. We don't kill the Marowak, and we get crit one-shot. I honestly don't even know if it needed a crit there. Prinplup has such low defense versus a thick club Marowak especially, so I think that was probably just stupid. But we're able to get Greedent. Our Thief gets Curse-Bodied, which is fine. We know that we're not going to stay in on Overheat with Sun Boost up. Or at least I don't think I am. We end up going Probopass to take neutral damage, but Probopass has such great defenses that I know it'll be fine. We take 1 and take 61 damage, so after the White Herb, I know I can't stay in. We're going to go ahead and put Sylveon in. Sylveon's really just here to tank a bit of stuff, because your Fairy type's really not going to be able to do much damage into the Fire type gym, but we go out, we're able to click Light Screen, which is a very nice move to learn by level up. Another reason why Sylveon is one of the best Eevees in the game. And now we can get our Slowbro out, who has Surf. Right as sun goes down, we're able to take a pretty big chunk off of Torkoal. And we are able to kill the Torkoal with Shell Sidearm. Fortunately, or else I think it would have started attracting and it would have gotten a little bit difficult. Now here I'm contemplating if the Sun, if the Camerupt is going to be able to live a Surf, and I think that it will be, and it'll one-shot my Slowbro. So we get Greedent in, we lose Light Screen and tank an Overheat, but Greedent is the GOAT. I stockpile, knowing that I'll be able to live the next Overheat. We end up taking much, much less damage from the next Overheat, and Body Slam is going to two-shot the Camerupt, which is, I guess, not too surprising because Camerupt isn't that bulky, but to me, I was impressed that it can two-shot with just Body Slam. But there we go, Sylveon again into Sun-Boosted Overheat, or what we expect to be Sun-Boosted Overheat. It misses, so we get burned, but we're able to set up Light Screen for free. And now we know, okay, it's going to be clicking Overheat. After this, it's going to want to click Hex, but assuming it hits the Overheat, the special attack is going to be down enough that we're really not going to take too much damage. My Shell Sidearm gets reduced by Burn, I think. But that ends up being alright because we're going to be able to take this Ninetales out in a couple more Surfs. And in retrospect, it is a little bit silly to open Prinplup into a non-intimidated Flannery 6 because the Marowak is really, really strong. And here I'm just making sure that I outspeed Magcargo. I'm pretty sure everything in the game outspeeds Magcargo, but it's Slowbro. You know, he's supposed to be slow. So we get out of Gym 6, checking what, if any, TMs I want to get. I think I want to say I don't end up getting any. I get Body Press because we have Greedent and Probopass, both of whom and Obstagoon, all three of whom are very good body press users. And I think I end up teaching the body press TM to Obstagoon here, because my idea is I don't really think that there's anything that I'm worried about for Obstagoon into this fight. I'm going to end up clicking Night Slash. Unfortunately, as always happens when you have a Guts Facade Mon, I do get Norman 8, so I don't have Guts Facade, or I think I probably just one-shot this Manectric. We're able to tank a little bit. We get the Snarl off to reduce his special attack a bit more. And this is a little bit more sus than I expected it to be. If I get crit, it's very difficult. Watson sends Raichu out, even though I'm a Dark type, just because I'm so low and I expect Raichu to outspeed me. But Trevenant's able to come in. We click one Shadow Claw. The special defense drop's actually pretty annoying because now I have to switch because I'm worried I'm going to die to Magnezone crit. So the funny thing here is I'm switching my Steel type into the Magnet Pole Magneton, but we have Earth Power. I think that I'm going to be able to live a few Flash Cannons, which fortunately we are, and the Earth Power one-shots in response, so honestly pretty solid late Watson. This gym can get a little bit difficult if you're not fully prepared for it, but fortunately this box is very strong generally. I think that this is definitely one of the stronger weekly boxes. And you kind of get to see it here with really not having any issue in the gyms aside from doing the KCH 42 classic of opening a Prinplup into late Flannery. But now we finally get the old Norman, so we can finally get Facade for our Obstagoon after this. We one-shot the Spinda. I kind of expect it to be Zoroark here because it sees that I use a fighting type move and it's immune, but Norman ends up going Slacking, and I know that it's going to Hammer Arm, and then after this turn it's going to Fling, so I just have to put something in that can live a Fling. Or no, it's EQ. Maybe it doesn't have Fling in this gym, I'm not sure. And now we're just doing a little bit of switch stalling. My intent was that I'd set up Seeds and then switch stall this between Scyther, who's immune to ground, which I think might be the only move that can hit this. Okay, it does have Fling, it just didn't click it for the first time, but Fling does no damage. I heal all of it back up with the Scyther. We get Pounce Off so that we outspeed on the next turn, and we're able to take Norman down slowly but steadily. Or Norman Slacking. We still have a few Mons, all of whom are kind of threatening. Now, because I just used a fighting type move, I expect this to be Zoroark, which it is, and we're able to get a Pounce Off to slow this thing a little bit. After the special defense drop, I am worried that I'm going to get one shot by the Shadow Ball, so we switch into Obstagoon, which is great. We outspeed because of the Pounce. I think, for me, Pounce is probably the biggest single addition that was added to the game with the new patch. Being able to get that slow on some of these later Carrymon so that you can pivot swap more cleanly is very, very nice. And we have a great little Steel type for late Exploud, which, in my opinion, is needed, or something that resists normal type and doesn't take super effective damage from Fire Blast is really needed for Exploud on Norman 8, because this thing is a terror. And now we're gonna get a little bit of switching in here as the Obstagoon comes out, and we will end up taking it out with one more Hyper Voice with a Pixelate boost on Sylveon. So that is all of the gyms down, only one death, and it was definitely avoidable. I think I just have to figure out different lines into that Marowak. I think in retrospect I should lead Phantump with Frisk without an item, steal the Thick Club, and then go into Greedent on Shadowbone. But we get into Elite Four, and this is where Unevolved Scyther really gets to shine. I think versus Spencer especially, but I think versus Sydney as well, Unevolved Scyther is so good. You can see here, I don't even get a Sword Stance setup. It's legit just click, pounce, and wing attack 5 times. And the fight is over. Breloom's going to be able to get a Mach Punch out that does 15 damage, and Elite Four 1 down. Scyther, if you can get away with not evolving Scyther in the gym phase, having unevolved Scyther going into Elite Four 1 is so nice. Now here, I'm testing a line out versus Lucy where I know the Seviper can't do anything to me. So I open Obstagoon, get Bulk Up out. I'm expecting it to be Crobat second to click Haze, but instead it's Overquill. And I'm thinking, alright, I'll just Obstruct to drop defense, a guaranteed one-shot with Facade. I don't even need to get the defense drop, because the Overquill doesn't click a physical move. And now we're kind of just one-shotting everything. I'm a little bit worried here that Crobat sees kill with Leech Life, because I'm thinking, why would it not click Haze? But for some reason, Dustox does not, or Crobat does not like clicking Haze, and we end up sweeping Lucy with, what is that, 6 moves? Something like that. And then we get into Tucker, and I evolved Scyther for this fight just because I think Scissor into this fight is better. Having Steel Stab, obviously, into the Fairy-type gym is going to be great. We do end up, unfortunately, getting hit by Sing and taking maximum turns of damage, which changes a lot for us. Now, I'm trying to think here if I want to Mega, if I want to switch. I end up just Swords Dancing again, tanking a Crunch, and going for Mega here. I'm hoping that +1 Technician Stab Bullet Punch is able to one-shot. It's not. We are able to get a full Restore out, which is nice, but that's our Mega Steel type gone for the 3 main carries on Tucker. And I'm thinking there's honestly a world where Scyther Bullet Punch just one-shots Togekiss, but I really don't want to risk it. So I put Slowbro in. Slowbro walls the Togekiss pretty well as long as you don't get flinched. I am pretty sure that Togekiss is going to be clicking Air Slash here, so Probopass is free switch. We take no damage. Poison ends up taking it down, and now we effectively got a free switch into Gardevoir for a Steel type, which is nice. And Probopass, once again, is kind of just going to bail us out of a little bit of an awkward line. I think... I was thinking that maybe there's a better line where I lead Probopass into the Wigglytuff, and I take the Wigglytuff down with Probopass Flash Cannon. But I think Flash Cannon's still only 2 shots Wigglytuff, so I don't think that line's perfect. But it ends up being okay. Probopass is a brick wall. The Rapidash is doing 13 damage to it per attack. It's effectively nothing. So a difficult Tucker fight dealt with. And we get Brandon for Gym 4, which Brandon, I love seeing Brandon because Drake always stresses me out. Brandon, I can calm down. I can click Growth, and I can click my Grass-type Draining move 6 to 8 times. It one-shots the Doug Trio. Oh no, our speed got dropped. Maybe that will end up mattering. I guess we'll have to see. We don't get crit by Stone Edge, which is nice. We heal nearly all of it back up. 1 harvested Citrus Berry, and I think the harvest on the Citrus Berry actually matter here a bit because I had no money going into the E4, so I had very few Citrus Berries. But Flygon comes out. We're not really in any danger from this thing. It could crit twice, and we still would have been fine. We would have healed out of it. The Swampert comes in, hits us with a resisted Earthquake, really not too worried about it. Hornleech is going to one-shot. And last, and typically least, the Rhyperior comes out, and even with the Stone Edge that connects, if it was a crit, it would have killed me, which was a little bit worrisome, but we're able to take it down pretty easily on return. And now we get to fight the correct champion, Wally. So with this box, there are 2 potential Wally leads that I have with this box. It's either Obstagoon Facade or Scissor Pounce into Wing Attack. I decide to lead Obstagoon, and I think that that's the right decision because Facade one-shots, you don't have to take any chip from Leech Life, or Leech Seed. And with Obstruct Facade, you're able to take out the Azumarill second, which I was kind of surprised to see. I expected it to be Gallade. I'm not fully sure why Wally doesn't put Gallade out into Obstagoon, but that's fine. It not being Gallade second actually kind of messes up my line here because I wanted to obstruct the Gallade and then switch stall it. But because it's Chomp Out and because we take burn damage and now we're taking Sandstorm damage, the line gets a little bit murky. I end up going Trevenant thinking I'll be able to tank whatever move it uses. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I live on 7 HP. Trevenant has moved up my rankings by quite a bit. Harvest and Frisk on a Pokemon are very, very nice. Frisk for early game, stealing a berry is huge. That's part of the reason that Greedent is such a good Pokemon. And then the Harvest for late game, where you're just able to stay in sweep and do so much work. Probopass is a great Talonflame Wall. We're going to see the Blaze Kick. Does no damage. It does burn me, which is a bit unfortunate, but Probopass's job after this is effectively just to die to Gallade, so the burn doesn't really matter. It's mostly just time loss. And Gallade click CC, which is perfect. If you can, you always want to get Gallade to CC your Pokemon that you're trying to sack, because if you're able to get the CC drop, it effectively means it dies to any physical move after it on Megas. We get an Obstruct debuff as well, to make it now at -3 defense. And now I'm just thinking, my Obstagoon outspeeds, I think it'll kill the Gallade. I can switch Trevenant in to Immune and then die, but Trevenant just lives again on 9 HP. For some reason, this is just the best Pokemon of all time. And we are able to let our next Pokemon get a free switch into Magnezone. So I'm kind of just checking. I want a Pokemon that can chip Magnezone to get it out of Sturdy. I know that Scyther is going to be able to outspeed in Mega, and we're going to pounce just for fun. This line could be cleaner, I think, for sure, but I don't want Wally to heal the zone after putting Obstagoon in. I just want to be able to one-shot it with Obstagoon Body Press, so we chunk it a little bit. I want to make sure I die before getting it to heal range. And now in comes Obstagoon to click Body Press and win the game for us. So slow run. I think that Wally split especially was a little slow. But all in all, this box really, really good, very consistent. Not pictured in the Hall of Fame screen is Greedent, who was one of my favorite Pokemon to use with this box, especially my run before. But honestly, just very, very solid box and pretty good time for me these days. Tier list for this week is Zigzagoon and Scyther in S tier. I was kind of debating between which one of these I'd have higher. I think historically I've really liked Obstagoon, and I think Zigzagoon early, especially with Snarl, you're evolved into Lanoon for Gym 2, I think is very nice. I've historically really liked this, although I've fallen out with Pokemon a bit recently, just because typically I don't like spending 4k plus on a Pokemon unless it's Bulbasaur. But I think generally this Pokemon is fantastic. I think honestly the Obstruct getting pushed back to, I think you only get access to Obstruct in E4 now is actually a huge nerf for this thing in Gym Phase, because typically you'd get to Obstagoon going into Gym 7 and you would have Obstruct, which is huge for like late Norman. If I had Obstruct into late Norman, then I can switch in. Have a great, one of the best slacking answers in the game. I have a great answer to opponent Obstagoon, which switches in, wants a click submission. I can drop its defense and then pivot out into a fighting move. I think losing Obstruct kind of hurt this a lot for me, honestly, to the point where now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'd have it like this. But it is still a great Pokemon. I mean, we saw it in the E4 sweep and do a lot of work. It's a great Pokemon into Wally, although I'm going to have to check the line because I don't know why Wally went Azu on 2. That kind of actually decreases its value a fair amount, considering it went Azu on 2 and then Gallade. I think it goes, or Garchomp instead of Gallade. I think Wally goes Garchomp into Obstagoon because it sees that I have a Protect move and it doesn't want to put its Mega into a Protect. I'm not sure. But I want to check the Wally line for Zigzagoon just to make sure. that it's still good. But regardless, even without the proper Wally line, it's still great. You can switch into a Psycho Cut, you can obstruct the CC, you can switch into a Fighting Resist, and then you outspeed with Zigzagoon, assuming you don't have minus speed nature. So great Pokemon, but I do think the addition of Pounce for me and just using Scyther more has kind of shown me that this Pokemon is kind of incredible. There are, especially a Scyther, a lot of early gyms that you can get that aren't great for it. It kind of feels like Archon in that way. Like for Archon, if you don't get early Brawly or Viola or something, the value of the Pokemon kind of falls a bit. And it feels the same for me. Like if you get early Flannery or early Titanizer or something where it's not super usable, it gets hurt a little bit, but it's so great into Norman. It's great into Juan Wallace. It's amazing into Brawly, especially if you get either early Winona or Brawly 3 or later, like we talked about. And I think in the E4, it's a great Pokemon. You can keep it unevolved, and Scyther itself is really good into Wally. It's a 4x resist that you can switch into CC to match with this guy if you don't have to evolve the Scissor to feel safe. And you get access to Steel type, which is incredible. You can also get Stone Setup with Sharpness, Stone Axe, which is also a great pivot. And I think generally, just this is probably one of the best Pokemon in the game to be. Probably definitely top 10, maybe top 5 at this stage for me. And I think Pounce did a lot for it, of giving your allies speed control as well. You don't really need it for Scyther, and you don't really need it for Scissor, but having that for a switch into your Probopass or in a double battle so that your Shinx can get another attack off before going down or something. I think that there's a lot of value in that. And Technician is just incredible, and Pounce gives you another Technician boosted move that can't miss. So these two are great. Then we drop down to A tier, and this is where I think my opinion is going to get a little controversial. I think Nosepass is better than Piplup personally. My problem with Piplup is I've drafted this Pokemon so many times, and I think every single time there's something about it that just doesn't sit right with me. And it's the fact that you're a water type that does not evolve until late, which is very difficult. Like gyms 4 to 6, especially, are very difficult to play with Piplup because you're so understated, especially by Gym 6 when you don't Evo because your cap is 35, it turns into Empoleon at 36. It gets difficult for me to justify picking this over a different water that can do more for you in the mid game. And the reasoning behind, like the excuse, I guess, for it not evolving later is you get access to Steel type, which is incredible in E4, and it's just a really good mon late game. But the problem is for me that Steel types are so great because they nullify so much of the early game threats for you. And this is a Steel type that is not a Steel type until Gym 7, which is nasty. And then when you're in the E4, what gyms do you want Steel types for? You want Steel types for E3, um, E3 primarily, really. For Tucker, having Steel type is great, albeit Empoleon is very good Pokemon into Tucker if you get the Flash Cannon TM, and you want it for Glacia, but Freeze Dry nullifies your Steel, like your Steel benefit, the plus that you get from Steel. It's still good into Frostlass, it's still good into Ninetales, but it doesn't do enough for me as a Steel type. And then also as a Water type, you get murked by pretty much all of Brandon's team because even though Regirock has steel coverage with Hammer Arm and everybody else has a ground move, and you underspeed all of them. And especially the big thing for me is that in Wally, typically I want my water type to be able to switch into Wally and two-shot the Garchomp with Ice Beam, if not one-shot. The reason I say two shots fine is because you can sack into the Chomp, you can put your water type out, it'll click Sandstorm, you can click Ice Beam, and then if you live one EQ, then you'll be able to two-shot. Most waters, a decent amount of waters like Vaporeon are able to one-shot with Ice Beam, I think. But you put Piplup in after a sack, and it gets one-shot by EQ. And to me, that's not what I want from my water type. And it also doesn't give me what I want for my steel type. So I do think that it's a really good Pokemon, don't get me wrong. I think Flip Turn and Flash Cannon make this Pokemon a lot better, but it's just not there for me, and I'm not the biggest fan of using it as either of its two typings, although it's a good mon. Probopass, I think it's kind of green on steroids. You're rock steel, you resist nearly everything, you know what move you're going to bait out. You are a special and physical wall, which is amazing. And for me, what makes this better than Aeron? The fact that you can tank both sides. You're a great switch in into everything. You can set things up. You get great learn set, generally getting Earth Power and access to Power Gem. And then, especially now that you're able to get Flash Cannon, just great mon, very reliable, very very reliable. You can always put it in to bail you out of something. It feels like for me, and I think this is such a great mon. Generally, especially if you're starting out with the game and you need more consistency, I think that this is one of the most consistent mons that you can draft outside of like a grass type. Which, speaking of grass types, we get down to our B tier. Phantump, there's not a lot to say that I haven't already. Frisk is great early game, Harvest great late, and having a ghost type into Gallade is nice, and a grass type with growth will always be welcome for me. Honestly, I could see this guy going up here. I think that all grass types with a buff move and a draining move are probably A tier minimum, but I put it here just to not, because I don't think it's quite on the level of Nosepass or Piplup, but it's very good mon. I like it. Greedent, I'm sad that I didn't record my Greedent carry run in my first run with this box. My Greedent got 9 KOs, I think, in the gym phase. I think this is just such a great mon. You learn so many of the garbage TMs that you can get for cheap from Scott. You can 1v1 anything. It's an immediate ace answer. Effectively, no matter the ace, as long as it's not Brawly, you can switch this in. You can covet or thief a berry. You can stockpile and just out sustain anything that you're put in front of, which is great. Slowbro, Slowpoke, Slowking, I think is a good mon. I think that I underutilize this a lot. I know that there's a Slowking line where you can sweep Drake, which is really interesting and I want to try. Um, but just for this run, I think Psychic Poison is not the world's best typing, especially for the way that I play the game. But Regenerator's nice, your moveset's nice, Slack Off, and Surf Naturally are pretty good. Disable is also an interesting move that I like using, but nothing crazy, but decent Pokemon. And then Shinx, I expect that I would really like Shinx. It's an Intimidate Mon with effectively no weaknesses outside of Ground, um, and Full Switch, which makes it seem like it would be a great Mon, and I do want to try it more, but it just feels like this Pokemon dies to legitimately everything, and even with Intimidate boost and 80 in all defenses and HP, it just doesn't really do enough for me. I do want to use it more, and I think that honestly there is a world where it can go up here if I learn how to use it a bit better. But I think for now, at least, this Pokemon is just a lot of potential, um, but not quite there for me. But that is week 21. Thanks for watching. Peace.